Hi again, and welcome back to my living room studio. I use the word loosely. I'm Carol Anderson, the principal coach of Utah Opera, and I'm happy to bring you another introduction to a Met streaming offering. Tonight we will look at Thomas Ades's 21st century opera, The Tempest, based on the Shakespeare play. So many of you will be familiar with the plot points. I love that the Met is giving us such a variety of offerings. We've had everything from things written in the last 2 years to Mozart and the classics, lots of Puccini, and it's a great opportunity with no commitment for you all at home to experience and explore some new genres maybe that you didn't know that you might like. So, for instance, you haven't had to commit to buying a ticket and committed 3 hours of your evening, and so it's a pretty painless way to experiment. So I hope you're taking advantage and listening to operas that maybe you haven't known in the past. And I suspect you have not heard the Met's version of The Tempest. I saw it in Santa Fe Opera when we did was that the American premiere back in 2006 or 7? So I wasn't working on the show, but I was able to watch it. It was really fascinating. So, British composer Thomas Adès was born in 1971 to artistic parents. His mother is an art historian and his father's a poet. He studied piano and composition, and he works internationally not just as a composer, but also as a very regular conductor in the most important opera companies and symphonies around the world. Adès has written 3 operas, Powder Her Face, The Tempest, and The Exterminating Angel, which was an HD stream offering in 2017. I had the chance to work on Powder Her Face at the Aspen Music Festival in 1996, and I was amazed at the drama and the musical complexity. It's a very singular story. It's a chamber opera, just 3 characters and a small group of players. It was probably one of the most difficult projects I had ever worked on to that point for sure, and maybe ever, but so very satisfying. My director friend reminded me, and I don't know if other music staff people on an Adès piece have felt this way, that in the preparation period, there was a moment that I called him and told him that I had thrown my score across the room. It's like climbing a mountain. There are those moments when you're just like, I can't go on, or you tell your friend, go on without me, I'll be here when you get back. And then eventually you push your way to the top and you realize you've got this vista and it was worth every bit of pain that you went through in the preparation. It's exactly how I felt about this piece, Powder Her Face, and so many other big, iconic or difficult new pieces that I've worked on. So since that first experience, I found Ades's music quite compelling, and I really enjoyed seeing The Tempest. Turns out I did write it. It's October. I was in the summer of 2006. I feel like he's one of the really interesting and contemporary and unique voices in current opera. His music can be very dissonant. It can be incredibly dense in texture, but it's also lyrical and glorious at times, and I'll try to show examples of both in my musical examples. I remember hearing some of the solos by the Onde Martenot, which is an electronic instrument, an early electronic instrument, in the Exterminating Angel broadcast, and thinking they were just very soaring and sublime. Most of us are going to be familiar with Shakespeare's masterpiece from 1610-11, The Tempest. I borrowed a very efficient synopsis from Shakespeare.org. I thought they would know how this opera went, and it would save me trying to boil the action down. So, Prospero uses magic to conjure a storm and torment the survivors of a shipwreck, including the King of Naples and Prospero's treacherous brother, Antonio. Prospero's slave, and he's always known as sort of a deformed monster type, Caliban, plots to rid himself of his master, but is thwarted by Prospero's spirit servant, Ariel. The king's young son, Ferdinand, who was thought to be dead, falls in love with Prospero's daughter, Miranda. Their celebrations are cut short when Prospero confronts his brother and reveals his identity as the usurped Duke of Milan. The families are reunited and all conflict is resolved. Prospero grants Ariel his freedom and prepares to leave the island. The play contains elements of comedy, romance, and then there's betrayal and treachery and trickery. Australian-born playwright Meredith Oakes adapted Shakespeare's work for the opera. She studied violin and took double honors, as they call it, in music and French at the University of Sydney, so she's got a musical background to go along with her writing skills. She's been based in London since 1970, has written several other libretti beyond just The Tempest. I looked at the publisher's website and saw her notes, so it's from her very own mouth, on the libretto and how she adapted it. It is inspired by rather than literally pulled from the Shakespeare. She says, the opera The Tempest is inspired by Shakespeare's play rather than being literally based on every aspect of it. There are key images from the play as well as new material. From among the play's many themes and possible interpretations, the opera focuses on the difficulty and the necessity of mercy. The libretto uses contemporary vocabulary. Its lines are short, rhythmic, and rhymed or semi-rhymed, echoing Shakespeare's strophic songs more than his blank verse. This choice reflects the play's magical, ritual, and childlike elements and acknowledges the traditional power of incantation in song. The operatic Prospero is the passionately vengeful man seen in the play, more than the wise, disconnected actor also seen in the play. Despite his near omnipotence, he finds things out as he goes along and experiences contradictory emotions to the end. So, for instance, there's a very famous speech, the full fathom 5 thy father lies. This is a speech of Ariel's. So the original Shakespeare is full fathom 5 thy father lies, of his bones are coral made, those are pearls that were his eyes. In Meredith Oakes' revisioning, she writes, 5 fathoms deep your father lies, those are pearls that were his eyes. So it's a little bit more directly rhymed. So there's very specific worlds for the different musical worlds, vocal worlds, sound worlds for the different characters. The most idiosyncratic and noteworthy one is the musical world of Ariel. So I'm just trying to get back to the beginning. Ariel is incredibly high flying. I look at the first page and I start losing count of the high E's. This high E. This is the high E above high C, which is sort of one of those notes that we always think of sopranos doing. So this is not every single high coloratura soprano is going to be able to negotiate this. You might have seen Zerbinetta in Ariadne auf Naxos, I think, or that might be. You may be familiar with that. I'm trying to think. That's a high-flying role with lots of coloratura, but Ariel is even more amazing and sort of idiosyncratic, I guess is the best word. So her first lines, or she's a him, I guess, gender fluid perhaps, but played by a woman, obviously. Fear to the sinner, fire to the impure, storm to the villain, harm to the wrongdoer. But we have this, and I haven't played the opera, but I've been reading through these little excerpts. This is fire. And then storm, storm to the villain, harm. So very disjointed, very spectacularly high, difficult. There's just a few sopranos who would really engage this. Audrey Luna, who's performing tonight, has made a real career out of doing a lot of these strange roles, including this and the incredibly high soprano who actually sings this note in The Exterminating Angel, sings a ton of Queen of the Night. So a high F for her is all in a day's work. And so she is also, she will be performing Ariel tonight. And there's a few other people who have been known to do it, but it's, you're not just going to find just any old person to do it. So her music is going to be crazy. Make sure you do turn on the subtitles, because at that range, it's not easy to get text. So just make sure you go into your settings and have those in there, because to try to ask a singer way up in this part of their range to give really clear text is just sometimes a little bit mean. I mean, she does a great job of negotiating that tessitura, but it's just a fact of life that it's tricky. So Ariel has this is known for high flying stuff, and she appears, she's always often not in the Tempest in Santa Fe. She was often in trees are appearing from high things. I don't know what to expect today, but I suspect it'll be a lot of aerial type things, because Ariel for Ariel, that was an unplanned pun, because the director of this is Robert Lepage, who has a long association with Cirque du Soleil, as well as having done a number of productions at the Metropolitan Opera, most notably that recent Ring. So then Prospero has an equal range, but it goes quite a bit lower. So his spans from like the G above middle C to the low G, and his melodic lines tend to be quite disjunct. So we have, when he comes in after Ariel's had their opening, Ariel. So it's a very, very disjoint and jumping around. And then we have the full Fathom 5 speech quite early. Full. Same as buttons. And that's a crazy line. Spanning more than 2 octaves in 3 notes. So, again, I'm a little faster than it's going to actually go, but I just wanted you to get the idea of this. It becomes almost like a spell that Ariel is casting. So later on, when we've encountered the chorus, who are part of the shipwrecked folks, they sing a little bit more lyrically, and their lines are a little bit more stepwise, a little bit more within a smaller range. But there's one place where they're talking about what happened and how to, what is this place that we're in, and they say unearthly still, and they take on some of the qualities of Prospero's more otherworldly music. So they sing, it's marked pianissimo, whispered leggerissimo, which means incredibly light, as we have on, and it's just floated for a long time, and then earthly. So it goes unearthly still. So lots more of that kind of disjunct line when they're talking about something to do with the magic of the island. I want to show an example of something that's quite a bit more lyrical. This is the character Sebastian, who is the betraying brother of Prospero, and he talks about, my brother's only child, flower of the nation, how will you bring him back, what will you do? Sebastian's he's related to the Duke, the current Duke of Milan. Sorry, I got confused. The brother is not Prospero, it's the Duke of Milan. I'm confusing myself. But anyway, when he says my brother's only child, he's talking about Ferdinand, the son of the current king of Naples. Stepwise, and almost sounds a little bit like a hymn, even though there's some wonky harmony along with it. Then Antonio comes in, and he is written in a different key. So Sebastian is written in sort of an F minor, A flat tonality. Antonio is written in D major. And then back to F minor. Then Antonio. So the key signature actually goes between 4 flats and 2 sharps throughout that. And then the king sings nobilmente, nobly. Oh, prince. where he thinks he's saying, "Hear me, Ferdinand. We think that you've become, whose fish has made its meal on you." That's the Shakespearean or the nice Meredith Oakes way of saying, "You've become fish food." So, scooting on a little bit, as they spend a lot of time wandering the island, searching, and of course Ariel and different spirits, they mess with the minds of the Neapolitans and try to just confuse them with the mysteries of the island. And so the chorus sings, and it's actually quite hymn-like because it's very, very choral, homophonic texture, just no counterpoint at this one point. And they say, "It will be done, we'll find your son." And then the chorus says, "We'll go on trying, we'll search the island. We'll not fear whatever's here. It will be done, we'll find your son." Bit. So later on, when all is said and done, Ferdinand and Miranda confess to Prospero that they are actually in love. And they have a very lyrical duet. There's a lot of, I won't be able to do some of the colors. It's a very large and colorful orchestra with a lot of interesting techniques. All the sort of standard percussion plus all of the things that you can possibly pound on and make a noise. It's just one of those kind of things, a kitchen sink percussion sort of situation. So this particular moment has all these little fluty things, which just sound clunky on the piano, as opposed to in the winds or in the strings, where it sounds very just like a little tremulous moment. But and that plus the actual tremolo, which is when the strings are going, like using the bow really fast, those colors won't read on the piano, but this is actually quite lyrical. Nice C major. And then we have this very floaty evening. There's a bit of ending. There's a bit of an introduction where it kind of has a rapturous crescendo into this A flat major. They sing "My Lover Smiling, Blessed Asylum," and it kind of floats into the end. Blessed Asylum. And it says "Blessed Asylum," but we're not quite sure because that doesn't sound restful. So the last thing I want to sort of share with you musically is this beautiful ensemble at the end, and it is what we call, I have to go to a different score, what we call a Passacaglia. A Passacaglia is a sort of stately piece. It has a bit of an ancient dance form to it. A very noble kind of processional-like dance from the Middle Ages. And one of the characteristics of the Passacaglia is there is a repeated melodic motive, either in the bass or in this case, it's kind of a little bit in the melody as well. And so you identify this theme that goes throughout, and so it just repeats a number of times throughout the ensemble. And in this case, they add the different voices so that the overall effect is a sort of a march to the end with an adding of texture throughout. It's a little bit like Pachelbel's canon, in a sort of way where you have just the bass line, and then you add like little bits of texture until it gets quite a bit more complex. That's what takes back with the Passacaglia. People who used Passacaglia include a lot of Baroque composers, but in particular, Benjamin Britten has a Passacaglia at one point in his operas almost exclusively. So that's another talk, 20 minutes of talking about the Passacaglia and Benjamin Britten. So I'll let you request that one later. So here's the Passacaglia in the end of the Tempest. How good they are, how bright, how grand, and I am loved by Ferdinand. Miranda starts the Passacaglia. And then Ferdinand comes in the same melody, and he says, "Oh, perfection of my life, I've a father and a wife." And then Prospero comes in, and he says, "Now my work is at an end. I can mar and I can mend." And he repeats, they all repeat these things, but it layers. Then the king comes in, "Now my child is given me. I'll abandon vanity." And then Gonzalo says, "Now the wild despair is past, reconciled and healed at last." But everyone's, as they start and then keep continuing on while the other one brings in, the next person brings in the new material, they're repeating the same text. So it has a kind of cumulative effect. Change there. Very stately and has a very Renaissance quality to it. And then, of course, the final music, the final moment is given to Ariel. And at this point, she's been released of her servitude to Prospero, and she sings a wordless vocalese from off stage. It just says, "Very vowel as desired." I-E-A. And I'm playing it about twice as fast as it would go. And we have her last phrase, we get a nice F in. Queen of the Night F. Ends on this sort of unresolved E minor-ish kind of thing. So I hope this gives you a few things to listen for, and I hope that you're looking forward to discovering something new, and I know it will be visually astounding as well because of Robert Lepage's incredible creativity and experience in such an amazing visual art. I think there's some acrobatic things going along, so it'll be like opera meets Cirque du Soleil in a few places. So thank you for joining me once again, and I love to share my favorite art form with you, so this has been a lot of fun to do every night. We want to thank Judy Browning. Dang it, I've twisted up every single time, and I know them very well. Sorry, Judy. Sorry, Drew. Judy Brady and Drew Browning, who are longtime members of the Utah Opera family and great supporters of our work, especially some of our newer operas. So we're really grateful for their support, and we're grateful for your support from home. And I know that if you're not in Utah, that your local opera company is also appreciative of your support and patronage. So remain safe, take care of each other, and be well. Thank you.